There's Stephanie. That's Stephanie. You want to be on the panel?
If I can.
Okay, just a moment. We were just missing you. I have stuff for you. I didn't want to embarrass you and not have a chair. Not to worry. We didn't want to have a chair.
Good.
There's Stephanie.
You're gonna sit over here? Okay.
No, I bet that I remember this.
Get on the camera. Now it's 3. Okay.
Even better. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. We've had quite a month for Gay Pride Month. We've had Key of Q show, our Joe and Fred show, happy hour, speakers. We've had so many things. And we are the LGBTQIA plus and allies of Woodland Pond Resident Interest Group. And we meet the 4th Tuesday at 2 p.m. every month, except for this month, we've got Dawn Sangri is going to show her film about marriages in New Paltz, One Summer in New Paltz. And she's going to talk about how she performed these marriages, got arrested, and it started the whole same-sex marriage equality in the country. And so we've got that. And then in July, we'll go back to our meetings. We have the flags in the back for you to see and in the pub. But today, we have a very special panel. Our group is made up probably about 2/3 of allies, and only some of them are here. Some are in the audience. And we love our allies because they care and they love us. So if you love me, I love you. That's my motto. So Fred Mayo, a future resident and local gay activist, I love that term, gay activist, is going to moderate, and ask questions of our allies and then open it up to the audience. So thank you again.
So thanks for coming. It's really wonderful to see you here. And I want to thank Joyce publicly and boldly, because right behind you are 3 of the flags that make a real difference. The one on the left, which is a newer version of the regular flag, because it has the pink and white and blue for trans individuals, and the brown and the black for both Black people and brown people and AIDS victims. The one in the middle, which is blue and pink and white, are for trans people. Blue is men, pink is women, and white are people in transition. So we honor all of them in that situation. And the one on the right, as I'm looking at them, is an all-inclusive, and we posted it just for you. Because if you look sideways, it's an A, and the A is for allies, and it was made for including everyone. So even if you're not LGBTQ plus, we love you and you belong and you're included. The black and white is for everyone in the world. The colors are the colors of the original flag that was invented by Gilbert Baker a number of years ago. But it's wonderful to see them here all month long. So welcome to Pride. My name is Fred Mayo. What we're going to do is each of us is going to introduce ourselves as allies and tell you a little bit about how we became an ally. And then I have a series of questions. But contrary to Joe, and I always lean into Joe and honor him as the coordinator, and Fred is number 1, I'm number 3, Fred 3. The idea is we're going to open it for questions. If something we say isn't clear, or you want to ask a question of us, interrupt us and we'll do it now rather than wait till the end, because sometimes you forget the question, or sometimes you might run out of time. And we really want to answer your question because allies are really important people. Allies are friends in the best sense of the word. And the notion of ally comes from war and allies who fought with other countries and other nations and other ethnic groups to bring freedom for everyone. And that's the notion of someone. What it means is that you're on my side. I'm an out gay man, and you support me. You encourage me. You encourage families and individuals. So when someone says something negative about LGBTQ people, you speak up and you say, that's not right. That's not fair. They deserve decent language like everyone else. If it means coming to the Pride marches or marching in the Pride March. And I'll tell you a story of a dear friend of mine who was an ally in one of the first marches in New Paltz. And the Pride marches started in New Paltz because of Jason West doing the weddings. And the weddings were in February and March. And then all of the ministers helped do that because he was forbidden by a judge to practice any more marriages. So we had them all over town. And that time, my boyfriend and I went to more marriages than I'd ever been to in my life. The good news was you didn't have to eat bad food. And second, you didn't have to bring a present. But it was weird to go through 4 marriages or 5 marriages in an hour and a half. It was a whole different experience. But many of the allies came out to support us. So given that background for what an ally does, and we have materials for you to take home to read and websites to look for if you want more information. So let's start with the way we're seated, etc. Peter's going to explain himself and how he became an ally, a little bit of what it means to him. So each of us will do about 2 minutes of that, and then we'll go through a number of other questions.
Hi, I'm Peter Brown. Can you hear me? Okay. So I was fortunate enough to grow up with a mother who was sort of an ally herself. So my mom, born in 1913, was in California during the mid-30s. And she knew a lot of the people involved in Hollywood and writers and so forth. And of course, artists everywhere, a large number of them are gay. And so she had a lot of friends who were gay. And I grew up 20 years later in the 50s and always knew to love and accept people who were gay. So I knew a whole bunch of people who were in the foreign service and who were in the arts who were gay. So I never had to go from being homophobic to an ally. I grew up, fortunately, with parents who were very tolerant of all kinds of minorities. And about 20 years ago, when I was teaching at SUNY New Paltz, I took a course, I don't know how many hours, maybe 10 hours or so, on how to be an ally and what to do. And at the end of the course, we got a little sticker and we put it on our office door, indicating that that was a safe space for students and other faculty to come, that we were allies. So I've had a bit of formal training. And since I've been here a year and a half, I've been part of the LGBTQ plus and allies group and have really enjoyed interacting with all the people in that group. So it's fun for me to be an ally, and I'll be able to talk more later. Thanks.
Want me to start right now? I think I was always an ally because I played golf and I had a lot of girlfriends who were lesbians, and I also had a close cousin who had AIDS, eventually died of AIDS. And then when I came to the Hudson Valley to help my daughter raise 2 children, I was very involved with them, and I was full-time for a year and a half. Eventually, I was part-time helping my daughter with the kids, but I taught them how to swim, how to fish, how to ride their bikes. I was with them all the time, oftentimes more hours than their parents were. So they were like, I interchanged my son's name and called my grandson my son's name and everything. My granddaughter turned out to be a lesbian, and my grandson has now transitioned into a woman. And it's been more than valuable to be part of the community here and learn and read. And it's helped me to understand, because there were moments when I probably denied that it was really happening to myself, to my daughter, to my grandchildren. But fortunately, their father and their mother, everybody in the family has been accepting, and there have been other gay men in the family. So it's like it was meant to be that I would be an ally when I moved here.
Great. Thank you. Nora?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. Yeah, I think I was born an ally. Yeah, because when I started my first ballet lessons, the first young man turned up. I didn't know what gay was or an ally. I didn't know anything about anything, but I sure liked him. And and here we would have an opportunity in our study of ballet to do some partnering, to do some lifts and whatnot. And so that was my initiation to beautiful gay men, young men, old men. And so yeah, we danced with him, you know, the annual recital that all schools have. That was just a great opportunity. Then we had a second wonderful gay man who actually became a very important dancer with American Ballet Theater. So that was his name was Arnett Mader, and yeah, so that just went on and on in in the pursuit of a ballet career, and as I moved into the National Ballet of Canada, there were lots of beautiful gay men to lift us and help us, and heaven anyway. So that, right, absolutely, swooning, and it was great. So yeah, we swooned together. Of course.
And we were safe.
Oh, I never thought of that. I didn't know anything, really. I didn't know anything. So anyway, so that continued in my life. It's interesting when you make a commitment to people, certain people, when you meet a person of that community, it's like you're meeting someone from your family, whether you know them or not. You know them well enough to embrace them, and so I'm always embracing people, everyone, but at the same time, out in the world, when you come across wonderful artists in all the fields, fashion, music, art, every field, you find these wonderful, and in all the fields of art and demography and goodness knows all, you have a bond. There's a bond right there. And so that's it. I've always been an ally, and I'm an ally. Okay.
Stephanie?
I'm Stephanie King, and I'm glad to be here. But I grew up in Catskill, New York. I don't think I ever knew anybody that was gay. Certainly when I was little, or even in my teens, even in college. But I met a delightful man. He and I dated a bit, and then we got married. This is in 1962, we got married. And about 10 years later, he realized that he was gay. Now, we just had a child. Here I am with a wonderful man, but he's gay. And I'm going to have to do something about this, because this is not the kind of life that I was hoping for. And when I think back, I honestly don't think growing up he knew he was gay. In 1962, I don't think he really knew he was gay, because it certainly was under the, hidden. Well,
Closet, we call it.
and yes, he was in a very large closet. It's a shame, because he was a delightful man, but I really wanted to have a regular marriage. And when I came here, I was really shocked that there wasn't any gay organization. Is before you guys really started it up. And then I have been very interested in the Ally program, because it's helped to answer a lot of questions that I had about life in general. Really happy many people here that are interested in learning more about.
So thank you. That's really great. Now you see the range of where we come from as allies, as well as the range of where we come from, whether we're gay or lesbian or in transition or already having transitioned, et cetera. So we're going to do quickly a sense of a special event or an action in each of these allies' lives that has meant something important to them, whether it was supporting a person or an individual, whether it was having to do with a husband who turned out to be different and straight, et cetera. So, Peter?
What am I doing? Question 1 or question 2?
2.
2? The most rewarding action or event I've experienced as an ally. Maybe something recently. We had an event, I forget when it was, where we had an intergenerational dinner and had about 20 SUNY New Paltz College students. And since I had been involved with the allies over at SUNY New Paltz, where I taught for 40 years, I kind of made the connection, the institutional knot between Woodland Pond and SUNY New Paltz. And even though I couldn't attend that event, I came in briefly for 1 minute just to see it because my kids were here visiting just for one night. But I think that was maybe the most rewarding action, even though I didn't observe and didn't participate in that dinner. What I heard from the students was, for some of them, the most rewarding experience they've had since coming to college here. So these intergenerational conversations, I think, are very rare, where an older gay person talks to somebody who could be their grandchild. And we had, 50 people there, something like that, or maybe more. I forget the number. But it seems to have been a very successful event and one that's going to be repeated in some form or another, maybe once or twice a year. So I think that's the most rewarding action that I've experienced as an ally.
I have to say that supporting my granddaughter now, who I helped raise as a male, and now she's a female, and I just fixed a skirt for her last weekend, and I took it over to her. She lives in Newburgh, and she's so appreciative, and I think it is the thing that has made me, there's so much love between us. That's it.
It's beautiful. One experience that really struck me was the first Pride Parade in New Paltz. I was out. I raised my kids in New Paltz, got married in New Paltz, came out in New Paltz, got divorced in New Paltz. I'm the bad penny you can't get rid of in New Paltz. But I went to the first Pride Parade by myself, and a friend of mine who was an ally, who was the head of the Democratic Party, said, "Fred, would you carry the Democratic Party banner with me down Main Street in Pride?" And I just started to cry. What a gift to be invited to carry a banner in the Pride Parade. And I was like in seventh heaven. But that simple request was transformative.
I think the most recent was the same event, right in this very wonderful space, when people from the gay community were invited with us allies. It was just blissful. I just thought, oh my God, home at last, and I felt connected to everyone there, admiring their, some of them are, lots of them there wearing their wonderful jewelry, and they're talking. And George and I sat at a table with a couple of wonderful people. I think they were both going to be lawyers, and I think, my God, I'd like them on my side. That's for sure. And in any case, that's the most recent joyful event, because I have so many in the past on stage where somebody has helped me, or, it's just an amazing community when you we work on stage with the same people all the time. But this was exceptional event here in this very room.
Well, my experiences really go back a ways, because when I found out that my husband was gay, I definitely wasn't going to live my life that way. But I did meet he had a partner, and I met him. And through friends of friends, I met a number of gay people. And the irony of it is that maybe this is 20 years ago, a man that I had dated in high school, I grew up with his family, and I found out that he was gay. I was like, what? I'm being surrounded in a good way. And the main thing is that I've learned that the allies here are helpful. I've learned that we can love everybody. People have different, every one of us has a different period of time where they need more help, or they just want to be understood for whom they are. So I'm very blessed that you guys started a group here, because I've learned a lot about pronouns, for heaven's sakes. What did I didn't have a clue about pronouns, but I'm learning even right here. So.
Yeah, and pronouns is a whole nother subject. I did a speech about pronouns in a questionnaire about 4 or 5 years ago here, before the Joe and Fred one were here, and have really transformed this environment. And so pronouns is something we can do again. It's helpful to learn them, to understand them, and to play with them. And particularly in this climate when we're not allowed to use certain pronouns, and there's now only 2 genders by law, according to Orange Man, but we're not going there. But what I do want to go into is, as allies, are you seeing your role changing in this political and social climate? We've had a different political and social climate earlier, but it's changing right now. And the trans community, which is 0.01% of the population, is under vicious and virulent attack. So and it's going to come to gay people, lesbian, bisexual as well, and gay. So I'd like to hear allies talk about, how do you see things changing, and what does that mean for you as an ally? Peter?
Well, the government has changed, the administration has changed, and as you mentioned, taken a number of really hostile steps towards people who are not straight. So I think we all have to step up and be more courageous than maybe we feel comfortable being. This is a really difficult time in our history, and a lot of people, not just immigrants and gay and LGBTQ community people, are under threat, but also universities and colleges and people who are concerned about the environment. So the landscape, the political landscape, has totally changed. One of the issues, and I don't know if I should bring it up, but I'll probably do it anyway, deals with trans people in sports. And I think the issue is more complicated than either black or white. And I understand how a lot of straight people feel that having having trans women compete against cis women in sports is considered unfair. And so I see the issue there. And so maybe my changing role has been to speak to my LGBTQ community and point out my perspective, which is that most Americans think it's unfair to have biological males competing against females. Have somebody who last year was competing as a male and then decided he wants to transition and now is competing as a female. And I can understand people being upset who have daughters who've been training and whatnot since they were toddlers and now are in that situation. So again, I think allies who are very favorably disposed toward the LGBTQ community can maybe provide another perspective that's useful.
I think the thing that's changed is it's not just within our family anymore, or my family, it's in the broader world, in my broader world, especially here. I think it was easy within the family because we had lots of acceptance. But now when people make a remark or just say something that off the cuff about being gay or walking in stilettos or things like this, I now see it as my role to respond to that and say, that's embarrassing, or whatever I need to say, whatever's appropriate. I need to say it, and I need to be nice and polite, but I can't let that go by anymore. I had my grandson, who is now a female, was I thought, top-notch swimmer because I taught him how, and he swam for NFA, and he swam all 4 strokes, and he was really good. He had to quit because she had to quit because he was getting teased in the locker room. So I've thought a lot about what Peter just said. You know, if he ever wanted to swim as a female, and we've discussed it. It's a discussion. At this point, I think every case is a discussion.
Oh, this is such a great topic. I must admit that I haven't been involved in the sports.
No, let's not just talk about sports. It's an issue. Given as an ally.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. Got it.
She speaks up when anything is said that seems obnoxious or inappropriate or critical or et cetera, to open people's minds or ears to a better way of saying it, a better way of thinking. So in this political climate, how do you see your role as an ally changing?
Yeah, well, just to bring something from what I started to say before, I'm not in that sort of situation ever, actually. But if I was to be, it would be, what I would want is data. I want to know exactly what the difference is between the female who was formerly male, their strength, and the cis athlete. I want to see some data on that. But I of course, I would defend. It just doesn't seem well. For some people, it is logical to question that. I don't know. I'm not that involved in sports, but it doesn't seem quite appropriate. I don't know, but I do respect it. So I would certainly defend the right of someone to play. But once again, give me data, then I'll have a better opinion. But to defend a gay person in sports just because they're gay and fighting it out, it doesn't seem quite right. They've got to be on an equal playing field in terms of strength. And I think that has to be incorporated in the training and in the training and managing of sports events and training people. But sure, gosh, I would come out every time.
I want to encourage you to talk to everyone all the time about that issue, because people respond to LGBTQ people out of bias or emotional response or thoughtlessness. And if we had more data, things would be very different in this world. So keep it up. Keep it up.
Oh, good. I love that.
We need the data. We need And we have now executive orders being issued without any data or evidence, and in fact, contraindicating some of the stuff. But let's hear Stephanie. How do you see your role of ally changing given the political and social climate now?
Well, it upsets me greatly that the chief of the United States is, downplaying anything to do with LGBTQ. And the other thing about the swimming example, I mean, I have a friend who, as a male friend, who was terrific swimming, and he had shoulders like this. He won all kinds of awards at a military academy in Albany, and then when he came out, it was very hard for him because he was now going as a woman, and he simply couldn't swim like a woman. He was built like a man, shoulders and strength wise. So I don't know where that whole thing is going at this point. But I must say, here at Woodland Pond, I have never had anyone say something inappropriate, to me anyway, because I would have jumped on them. I think we're very fortunate that we have the ability to have friends here who understand what's going on and at least be polite about it.
And I think that's really important. We need, and I speak for the LGBTQ plus community, we need people who jump on others, who say things that are inappropriate or critical. I think we need to do that for all different minority groups. We have a huge issue of anti-Semitism in this country. We need to stop that wherever we see it. We have a huge moment of anti-gay, anti-lesbian, anti-trans, etc. We need to stop that. We have this weird attitude about people who live in this country who don't have the same kind of green card. We need to stop that. We need to stop the even talk about the fact that if you're born, the birthright concept in the Constitution, you're born in this country, you're a citizen of this country. There are people trying to change that. We need to step up to those kinds of issues because they're wrong. And we need to data, but we need to stand up politely, carefully, but we need to stop that in people's thinking and people's conversation. That's a commitment we can all make. I don't care if you're straight or bent, we all need to make those kind of statements all the time. And I think it really makes a difference because then we speak as a community of people who have similar values, and it makes a huge difference, etc. So let's go to question number 4. Who would you like to invite to be allies, or how would you like to invite? This is a sort of ally group, but maybe all allies. But are there other people you would like at Woodland Pond or in the community at large to become allies as well?
I think everybody at Woodland Pond should become an ally. So I think we should reach out to the entire community and maybe have some program as to, these 4 pages were useful that you handed out, and put on a program for the general residents here as to what is expected of allies and what their role could be.
I agree with that. And I just had an experience probably 2 months ago where there was a woman that I play cards with who had her grandson here, and he was gay. What a delight. And she and the 2 of them had such a great relationship, and she was bragging about how much he helped her clean her apartment and do all sorts of things. And that, I definitely see people like that becoming allies. And when they know I'm part of this group, oh yeah, well, I have a cousin, I have this. I've had at least 4 or 5 people say things like that, yet they're not allies. I'd like to see them become allies.
Sure, but I don't see, you must become an ally. That has to come from your heart from your whole being. It can't just be, I could be an intellectual decision, I suppose, but in any case, your heart has to be in it in a big way. George and I have a beautiful new granddaughter who used to be our grandson. And she is now, this very tall, beautiful young woman. And we're standing by along with other members of the family to watch over her. And I hope that she comes across people like you, people like us in her life to support her. Who knows, but at least she lives in Germany, not here, which is a better thing so far. Yes. So I say, look in your heart, look at these gorgeous people. Gosh, they're so beautiful. And look in your heart and see if that's what you'd like to do, to participate in the world around you. Thank you.
Well, I think it's great that we can have meetings like this to explain to people. There are a lot of people my age who really don't know anything about LGBTQ at all, because they grew up before that sort of thing was even thought about publicly. So I think it's important that we can let know. I noticed that the meeting that we had about pronouns, like it was a blur to me, but it certainly helped me to understand that. But in my heart, I know where my love is. It's everybody, but I certainly am very, very conscious of helping anyone that's trying to transition or just to get known that it's okay to be gay and you shouldn't have to worry about it. At least here at Woodland Pond, I think you can be pretty open.
And to Woodland Pond's credit, it has shifted. I've been coming here for 15 years. My former wife was an independent living. Then she was in assisted living. Then she was in memory care. Then she was in nursing care. And I would come a lot, and the kids would come, and the grandchildren would come, etc. So I've been around, and the tone and the atmosphere has changed dramatically. I give credit to the administration for pushing that, making that happen, etc. When I was a faculty member at NYU, we had Allies Week, and we all committed to recruit allies, and we wore "Wouldn't you like to be my friend" T-shirts, or "Wouldn't you like to be an ally for me?" And faculty members and staff and students, we wore them for the whole week, etc. And we really collected a lot of people who wanted to know more and wanted to step up to the plate and make a difference. When I first went there to teach full time, obviously as an out gay man, I had a picture of my boyfriend and I outside my office door and outside my apartment door. And so everyone knew that I was a safe person to come talk to. And several people said, "Why do you do that?" I said, "Because NYU is very aggressive and very supportive of that. But a lot of people come from Iowa or Nebraska, no criticism of those states, or other places which isn't as welcoming as New York City." And I've had lots of conversations with students and staff about coming out and what the process is and how to think about it. And just because I had a sticker or a sign on my door, and it was always confidential, and it was a safe place to come. So allies can be friends where it's safe to talk about something that's scary or that's difficult. Over the years that I've done speeches here, I can't tell you the number of people who've come up and said, "My grandson did it," or, "My daughter has said this about their kids, and I want to know how do I," and what, it's real and it's everywhere. Fred 1 and Joe tease about it being in the water in Ulster County, but it isn't. It's actually everywhere. People are now encouraged and able to be supportive. The horror of AIDS had a silver lining, and that is you learned that the postman or the uncle who came to Thanksgiving who was always single, or the aunt who was always single, you found out during the AIDS crisis that they were family members and they were gay or they were lesbian. And all of a sudden it became not the weird people in Greenwich Village, but your neighbor and everyone around you, and the barber and the plumber and the electrician. It transformed this country in dramatic kinds of ways. What I'd like to do is, we have not heard any questions yet, so let's see if we have questions, Joe, or comments.
I'm George Brown. I was about to mention AIDS, but you just took it away from me beautifully. No, beautifully.
I'll pay you later.
No.
I'll pay you later.
But I want to point out that AIDS, we all experienced it with people at this age in the 80s and 90s, when people, as you say, around us were dying of this terrible scourge before the highly effective antiretrovirals came along in the mid 90s. So I want to say that right now, people are dying of AIDS in Africa because of the action of the Trump administration in killing and putting in the wood chipper USAID, which includes PEPFAR, which has been the most effective program in blocking AIDS, preventing AIDS transmission. And thousands of people in Africa are dying. And a few in the U.S., it's still here in the U.S., primarily in lower income groups, people of color, smaller numbers, but still here. This is an epidemic that has not yet disappeared, and we remember it well, but we must keep the fact in mind that somehow, someday, we have to resurrect PEPFAR and help the African epidemic. It's still an epidemic in Africa.
Absolutely right. And I'll add to what you may have heard about, which is the new research that was just stopped dead, in which they think they're 1 year from coming up with a vaccine for HIV, which would transform Africa. And it's been it's several universities. It's a lot of difficult issues, because the HIV virus is a multiply complexed virus in various places in the DNA. And they finally found the cluster. They were about to start clinical trials. It was stopped. So we need allies to be advocates and to be aware. No, I'm not expecting it. No, I know it. I know, I agree. But the point is, that progress is now stopped dead, right? The AIDS stuff is stopped dead with all of what happened with USAID, which is another horror story. But we need awareness, and we need activism, and we need aggressive discussion of these issues. That's what A stands for. Other questions and comments? Please.
I'm Eileen McClatchy. My question is, I was at a family party, Memorial Day weekend, and my daughter-in-law's brother and his family, who I've known for 30 years. So their son, last summer, he's 19, she's 19, is now a female. So this is the hard part. I've known him since he was a baby. I don't think of him as a she, but she did come to this party, and she always was beautiful, but she had lipstick on, which was helpful for me. But because I know his father, I mentioned something to David, how are you doing? So my question is, how do you acknowledge this? I feel like I might have been inappropriate. And he fortunately says, whatever makes my child, my daughter, happy. But I'm talking about me as a person. I've never heard of the advocate idea before, but I don't know how to speak to this.
Yes, you do. You speak with love. And the hard part is using the correct pronoun and the new name. It is a discipline, but you have to learn it. It's just like when you move from Jenkins Avenue to Lawrence Lane. You have to learn a new address. And you literally, I can tell you the number of people I've walked with and talked with and argued with. I said, I don't care what you have to do. Change your wallet, change your rings, change your pen, whatever you do. She is she.
Right.
And I grew up when she was different, but she is what you need to say. And whatever the woman's name is, that gift.
She didn't change her name.
Okay, good
Yeah.
for her.
Right.
I mean, some people have names that
But-
could go both ways.
But as somebody who wants to talk about it, like with the dad, maybe I was inappropriate even bringing it up.
Well, I'm glad to have everyone else here talk about that question. Do you want to speak to those questions?
Yeah, I don't think it's inappropriate. I've had the same difficulty with my granddaughter. I forget to call her a girl, and she's really just now decided that she wants to be called a girl. And we went recently on Mother's Day to shop for flowers at a nursery, and she put her arm around me, and we were laughing and talking like we usually do. And some woman came up and said, "Oh, what a beautiful picture that is." And she said, I said, "Yes, will you take it?" So I gave her my phone. She was going to take the picture. And I mistakenly said, "Yes, this is my grandson." And I said, "I mean granddaughter." And the woman was elderly and like us. And she looked at me, she says, "Oh, yes." And my grandson was thrilled. Daughter.
But you know,
It is hard.
But Jill's story is really important.
Yeah.
If you make that error with love and correct
Yeah.
it, it's love that counts.
Yeah.
If you refuse to use that name, you're
Yeah.
making a statement about that person's identity and your connection to that person. So use what you can, remind yourself every way you can, when you shave, for some of us who shave, you brush your teeth in the morning, say, remember, it's Jenny, not Jim. It's Jenny, not Jim. It's Jenny, not Jim. Or whatever the purpose is, because it's really important. And it's very appropriate to start to talk to the parents and say, "How's it going, David? Anything you want to talk about, etc." The place that's really horrendous for trans people is when you meet someone, you say, "Oh, when's the surgery?" Because people have this weird notion that if you're trans, you need surgery. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of trans people, and the data supports it, who've never had surgery and don't need surgery and don't want surgery. There's a lot of hormone treatment that people do. It changes with different body types. There are doctors who are experts at this, and they say, "Don't do hormones, do this instead, or do that instead." The issue is wearing their clothes differently, using makeup or non-makeup. Nowadays, it gets more confusing because men wear makeup as well as women wear makeup. So you're like up the creek. But the point is, be open to what their experience is. And you've all raised kids or have been around kids, nephews and nieces, or kids or grandchildren. Ask the questions, listen carefully, but don't jump to surgery. Don't jump to something inappropriate. Because for many people in the beginning stages, that's the last thing they want. And many people in this country can't afford or find doctors in parts of this country. There's no doctors around who know how to do gender affirming treatment. Sometimes it's as simple as aspirin and other kinds of stuff because they got a headache. I have dear friends who have a wonderful granddaughter now. And when that granddaughter was presenting as a male, that granddaughter was biting and screaming and fighting and whatever. When that granddaughter realized her identity,
It's for you.
came out.
It's for you.
When that granddaughter became a granddaughter and acknowledged it, all of a sudden she became excellent in school, honor student, and she fought to not go to school when she was presenting as a he. The individual did not want to go to school, bit the parents, bit the siblings, angry, frustrated, didn't know what was going on, came out to the parents. The parents were supportive totally, right? And Sabrina is happy and excellent student, was recruited, and this is why the data counts, was recruited by both Harvard and Yale from prep school. Now, most of us are lucky if we can get in anywhere, but to be recruited by Harvard and by Yale, right? Because she is now a leader. She runs the local newspaper in the prep school. She's an honor student in all these courses, etc., because she's herself. So honor that they're claiming their identity. You know, for a little example for some of us is when we started to get salt and pepper hair or white hair, and we realized that we might forget something. You know, when you go into the kitchen and you figure, what was I in here for? So you go back to the living room to see if you can remember what it was. You go back in the kitchen and you come back with several things from the kitchen, but they're not the things you originally intended. So that happens to all of us, right? So we've adjusted to that sense of identity. Think about those kids moving in their sense of identity and support the parents. Be like Jill. Support your kids who are dealing with their kids in a difficult transition. You know, love makes a difference. Sending a card makes a difference. Calling them and seeing how they're doing makes a difference. Show them that you still love them. They're not bad because they're now male or female or out. Right? Any other questions or comments, please?
I have a comment, Molly Jones. The question about how to, as Stephanie raised, how to talk to our cohort here in their 80s and beyond who did not grow up with liberal thinking, if you will, about sexuality issues. I'm reminded of my mother, who grew up in a totally sheltered environment and remained that way all her life. And 25 years ago, my husband was ordained in the Episcopal Church in Miami, and my mother came for the ceremony. And after the ceremony, there was a reception, a party given by our best friends who were a gay couple, a wonderful gay couple, partly because one was German from Hamburg and the other one was from Costa Rica, and they were just as different as could be and great fun, and they were great cooks, and they had this marvelous party. Well, my mother was just bowled over. She had a wonderful time. They made a big fuss over her. They continued to send her cards and so on after, you know, birthday cards and Christmas cards and so on. So she would say, how are Hano and Alfredo? And I think this personal contact makes all the difference. I'm not sure my mother had ever met an openly gay person before in her entire life. I can't. I mean, she had a brother-in-law whom she adored, who was gay, and that marriage ended. But that contact with him ended also. I don't think she ever knew.
So that's the answer to your question. Tell the positive stories.
Yeah.
Make positive experiences. I happen to be my former wife's family includes me all the time, even though Lynn's gone, because and they know I'm out. They knew when I was apparently straight, and they know I'm bent. I get no treatment that's negative, etc. All my grandchildren know I'm out, but everyone's all inclusive. So tell those positive stories. That's what changes people's impressions. A, to meet someone. B, to hear the positive stories. Because what you find in a lot of the media is all negative stories. And what allies can do is advocate with positive stories. We think it's a little thing, but it's a huge thing. Because then the people say, oh my God, I never thought about that. Or you tell someone, oh, you know, I had a wonderful conversation with this lesbian, but don't use the person's name. Oh my God, lesbian thought, smart, things like that. Oh my God. So you can change people's perception by always bringing positive stories out and by not tolerating negative comments. It's huge because you're helping change people's thinking. Anyone else on the panel want to answer that, Stephanie?
No, I think.
Okay. Jill?
I have one more real quick story. When my daughter was lamenting one day when all of this was coming out several years ago, I remembered this story when I was teaching special ed. It was about a family who was planning a trip to Italy, and they got all the brochures and they were excited and they were going to visit all the big things. And the plane landed in the Netherlands, and that's where they ended up. And the moral of the story is, if you don't enjoy where you are, the whole thing is lost. So now you are in the Netherlands. And I related that to having a child that's different.
I'll give you another example in terms of family stuff. My former boyfriend, we split years ago. We're still good friends. We talk all the time, etc. Every once in a while, he says, remember when we went to visit your kids and Bobby came up to me and gave me this big hug, and he still gets teary. This is a kid who was one of my grandchildren's friends who had met Maurice once, and knew me, etc. And this is my boyfriend. Immediately walked up to him, gave him a big hug, right? And what that did for my boyfriend at the time was transformative in feeling included, Because, you should never really hold hands with a gay person. You might get poisoned, right? But I mean, there is that kind of stuff. It's catching, and people have those old notions. I did a funeral many, many years ago for a dear AIDS person dying of AIDS, a number of us, etc. And one of his two things he asked when a lot of us were with him. I was married at the time, etc. And he asked me two things. He said, "Would you do two things?" I said, "Whatever you want, of course." And he said, "Would you do this service for me? Because I can't ask any of my friends. They're exhausted. They'll be there, but they can't stand up again." I said, "Sure. How do you want it done?" He said, "Mickey Mouse." I said, "You got it." Right? And the other thing he said, "Would you do something for gay and lesbian causes every year?" And I did. Half of my friends said, "You can't do a Disney funeral. You cannot do that." I said, "Watch me." And I got ears for everyone. We sang MICKEYMOUSE. And everyone who at that funeral came up and said, "Thank you, thank you. It was so nice to be happy, remember the good memories," as it was a long and very painful death and difficult situation. And many of us were dealing with lots of those deaths. And you make it positive. So tell positive stories. Engage in conversation. Find out facts. Nora will be the queen of data for you. And so really make a difference in every little way. I'm fond of saying, people said, "Will you give me a straight answer?" No, I said, "I can't, but I'll give you a bent answer." And I had dear friends in the church. They'd laugh at me and they'd say, "Yeah, I know, all the time. Bent answer." Okay, but I'm bent. That's me. I'm not straight. So I'm not going to hide it. And I've had people in the grocery store say, "What's a bent answer?" I said, "Well, I'm gay." "Oh, well, I want to know more about this." Now, I'm not trying to pick up people in the grocery store, don't get me wrong, but it's interesting. The more you just be an advocate or an ally or an associate and use affection, it's transformative. Any one last comment, Peter, you want to make? Jill?
I'm good.
Nora?
I'm glad I got here.
I'm glad you got here too.
Yes.
So I would like to thank these panelists.
Yes.
There's allies. They've been allies. They will be allies. And thank you all for coming.
Now you know
Except for
why
Steve.
we love our allies. You saw firsthand. And to close, the best ally story I have, I was watching a gay pride march on TV, and there was an older couple, straight couple, with a sign saying, "Hug us. If your parents don't accept you, we're your parents." And I just love that. Yeah, great story. Yeah. Thank you all for coming.